All right, we've got Escape Room Tournament of Champions coming up. So today I rewatched Escape Room. Now I actually saw Escape Room in theaters. I want to say January of 2020, I think. One of the few films that got in before the pandemic hit. And I was a fan. So I don't want to get into the plot or spoilers or things like that because I feel like a lot of people haven't seen it. So, in case people want to check it out before the new one, I don't want to give too much away. But I am a fan of this kind of movie. And what I mean by that is it's an original story. It's not based on anything. It's not adapted from something. It's just a new story. And because of that, you really have no idea what's going to happen to who. So I kind of mentioned this when I was talking about the Purge movies, which are anthology films, and how having a new cast of characters every movie means you never know who's going to die and who's going to survive. And the same result happens here because of different factors. So because it's an original story, it's not an anthology series yet. It might become that, but it's an original story, and it's pretty lesser known actors filling in the roles. So it's not like there's a particular famous person and you're like, oh, well, they're going to be the main character, right? It's hard to tell who the main character is, and I think that makes for a better viewing experience. I would say, for me, the most famous person in the movie is Deborah Ann Wall, who I've actually met before after seeing her in Daredevil, Netflix's Daredevil show. So that's exciting. I had forgotten she was in this, even though I just saw it a year and a half ago. So that was a nice little surprise when I was rewatching it. And I guess I'm a forgetful person. I didn't remember a ton about what happened in the movie, so it was a very nice rewatch. There are some things that I kind of picked up on that I didn't notice the first time around, so that was cool. But yeah, I really like these original concept, low budget movies where you don't know what's going to happen. And the nice thing about them for the studios is that when you don't spend a lot of money on the movie, you don't need to make a lot of money in order to make a profit. So that's why movies like this and The Purge keep getting more installments, because I don't know what the budget on this was, but this cost a lot less than an Avengers film, right? So yeah, I don't have a ton that I want to say. I have two little nitpicks with the movie, and they're both based on the first scene, so it's not really going to be much of a spoiler because it's the very first scene. But we do this thing where we start in the middle of the movie, and then we go back to the beginning, and then eventually we catch up to where we started the movie. And I find the first scene annoying for two reasons. First of all, because then you know that the character that we see in that scene gets as far as he does, right? So you're not really concerned about him throughout the movie. So that was a little strange. And also, in that scene, he's talking to nobody, and it's done so that the audience knows what he's looking for. And there are ways that that could work, but it doesn't work because, number one, he doesn't do that at any other point in the movie. So it's not like that's something that he does. So they could have just made that like a character trait, is that he talks to himself. Number two, they could have also done it that he was talking to the game masters that are watching him on the cameras, and they establish at one point that there are cameras everywhere and people are watching them, but at no point before that scene does anyone talk to the cameras, and he doesn't do it after that. So again, that doesn't really fit. I have to sneeze. Can I hold it in? We shall see. So it doesn't make sense that it's not a character trait of his, and it doesn't really fit with what he's been doing in the situation. And I feel like those are two ways that you could have made it make sense, and they didn't. and it was also unnecessary, right? Like it serves to start the movie, on this and it's not really an action scene, but in this exciting scene, because this, then the real start of the movie, it's a little bit slower paced, but people know what they're in for. If they go to see a thriller called Escape Room, we don't need to see an escape, like, we get it. So it's not necessary. And even if you had to do that, right, if you have to show that first scene, if you hadn't have had him saying all these clues out loud to himself for no reason, people might have been a little bit confused when they see this movie for the first time, but that adds rewatch value because while we catch up to that scene later, we don't see the whole thing again. So then if they go back and rewatch the movie, they'll have probably a stronger understanding of what exactly he's doing. So that one scene, I think it was done poorly, and it didn't need to be done. And those are really my only two issues with this movie. I really like that we don't see too much of the peek behind the curtain of who's controlling what's going on. And we don't really see why, other than they have, rich clients that want to see stuff like this. So, compared to something like Cabin in the Woods, where it focuses a great deal on the people running the experience and why they're doing it and how they're doing it, there's more mystery to this. And I'm really hoping that they don't completely screw that up in the next one. I'm really hoping that it stays mysterious, because once you start trying to explaining everything, then it's like, well, that doesn't really make sense, and well, how could they have done that? And that couldn't happen. So the more vague it is, I think, the better. Focus it on the rooms and the characters playing the games. I thought the rooms in this were really, really cool. I'm curious to see how it's going to be different in the next one, or if it's just going to be more of the same thing. So this is a franchise, so to speak, that I liked the first one, and I'm really curious but nervous to see how it's going to go. Whereas compared to like The Purge, I liked the earlier installments, I liked the newer installments, and there was one in the middle that I didn't like. And so I've kind of had this going on with it. So I'm hoping that the second one continues with the things that I liked and continues to avoid the things that I hope that they avoid. But Hollywood tends to find the wrong lessons with their films. So I'm nervous. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much that it's not going to be fantastic. And I don't think it's fantastic. I just think that it's a good time, a good experience to watch this movie. And I'm a big fan of the Saw franchise. So the idea of traps and people finding their way out, and there's kind of an element of like, now you've got more appreciation now that you've gone through this. But that's not really a big focus on it. But the newest film in the Saw franchise, Spiral, I thought was a horrible continuation of that franchise. So to me, The Escape Room is kind of like my new Saw fix, but with a lot less of the gore, because I was never a fan of the gore in the Saw movies. I was a fan of the traps and the psychology, and so Escape Room, it's a lot more mild, toned down, similar experience to the Saw franchise, except for, we don't know anything about John Kramer, or, we don't know anything about that side of it. We only know from what the victims and the participants have seen. So I got high hopes, but only moderate expectations. I'm excited to see the next one. That's probably one of the ones that I'm most excited of coming up. Looking at my upcoming list, we've got at the time I'm recording, I got Black Widow coming up. I'm excited for that, but I've heard some not so great things. I've got Space Jam, which I cannot expect that that's going to be decent. We got a new G.I. Joe movie, and I've never seen any of the G.I. Joe movies. And Jungle Cruise, which I don't think is going to be anything that I really care about. So the next 4 weeks, Escape Room seems like it's probably going to be the one I'm looking forward to the most. Hopefully it delivers. But now I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop doing that. If you haven't seen Escape Room, I would check it out. It's like an hour and a half long. So not one of these movies that takes up way too more time than it needs to. And the sets are really cool. The rooms are really cool. I had another thought enter my brain, and I was trying to think of it, and then it left. It was gone. Oh, I let the credits roll just in case there was anything after. And the DVD automatically played the special features, which included deleted and alternate scenes. And they had an alternate scene with a different group starting the game, and none of them made it out of the first room. And they were all speaking Spanish. So if that had been left in, I think it would have been better than the scene that they started with, for all the reasons that I mentioned before. The only problem with it is that there's a bit of a twist in that scene in the main film that would have been given away if this was the opening film. But I still think that would have been better overall. But the fact that they're all speaking a different language hints that it's a global organization and not just focused in the U.S., or this whole movie takes place in Chicago. So I think that would have been better, but I don't know. It might depend on what comes next. There were also multiple different alternate endings included on the DVD, and it's hard to say which one would have been better or worse. So hopefully this second film makes sense with the ending that they chose, and it's decent enough story-wise that it's not going to make me, now that I've seen the alternate endings, hopefully it doesn't make me wish that they had gone a different direction with it. But that's all my thoughts on the first Escape Room. I'm excited to see the second one. Let me know if you've seen it and what you thought about it. But that's all I've got. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.